are cancer survivors. It was not easy. But what I want to talk to you today about is just a little bit about some statistics, but how I found a can in cancer. And believe me, when I was diagnosed, I saw no cans. I saw nothing. I was a fearful nurse that knew nothing about cancer. But when you look at the glass half full, it makes a big difference. So cancer affects probably 240,000 women annually, and that's a lot of women if you think about it. And of that, about 40,000 women die of the disease, even now. The rates are going down, but sadly, for African American women under the age of 40, the death rates are really high. And we attribute that to what we call triple negative disease. And triple negative means that the cancer is not fed by any of the hormones. For women that have cancers that are fed by hormones, after their surgery and chemotherapy, they can take what we call pills, medications to kind of block that estrogen from feeding into their breast. But for women that are triple negative, there are not any of those medications right now that are available. So the organization that I'm a part of, Touch, part of what we want to do is to raise awareness about clinical trials. In the African American community, when you say clinical trials, just because of past history from Tuskegee to even Henrietta Lacks, there has been fear when it comes to clinical trials. But what we're learning now is when we're involved in clinical trials, that helps us to live. Right now, what we know about clinical trials is this, that the average person that enrolls in clinical trials, and I'll break this thing down just a little bit so you can understand, the Tylenol, the Advil, the Excedrin, all of those things that we take, someone had to go on a clinical trial. And the average person, the majority of the people that decide to be a part of a clinical trial is 50-year-old white men. So if you're a white woman, a black man, a black woman, you're not really counted if you don't meet the frame, the size, the age. So the 2 tablets that are supposed to be normal may not be the 2 tablets that we as women or black men need to take. So we need to get involved in clinical trials so that we can be counted for. Clinical trials aren't something now that's unregulated. It is something that has more regulations than you can believe. And when you're on a clinical trial, they really do a lot of testing and examination and surveillance so that there are any side effects that you have, they are reported and they are taken care of promptly. So that's my little promotion for clinical trials. They do really make a difference. Now, we've been here probably, an hour, close to an hour? We're on 46 minutes. So every 3 minutes, a woman in the United States is diagnosed with breast cancer every 3 minutes. Every 12 minutes, a woman dies from breast cancer. So think about that, 3 to 12. So by the time that we leave here, there'll be a lot of people diagnosed, a lot of people die. It does make a difference. So what are some of the risk factors? It could be genetics. It could be race. More white women are diagnosed, more African American women die of the disease. If you have family history, if you had a first-degree relative, your mother, your sister was diagnosed with breast cancer, that predisposes you. Another interesting fact is that if your father was diagnosed with prostate cancer, that may predispose you to breast cancer. If you are a sister with breast cancer, that can predispose your brother to prostate cancer. See, all this stuff is relational. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. Reproductive history. For women that didn't have a child before the age of 30, you could be predisposed to breast cancer. And then if you had a menstrual cycle that started before 16, let's say the age of 11, that also predisposed you to breast cancer. There's a lot of different things that we don't talk about. We don't have control over those things, but it's good to know. So when we're having these conversations during Thanksgiving or Christmas, and we're talking about everything else, we can kind of throw that in that Uncle John had this and Aunt May had this, so that we can prepare ourselves. These are some things, however, that we do have control over. We call those behavioral risks. Obesity. They've shown many correlations with breast cancer, many other cancers, that obesity does play a part in that. Smoking cigarettes, I don't even need to say any more about that. Birth control pill, hormone replacement therapy. Women get a certain age, and you have hot flashes of that, and go to the doctor, and they give us hormones, and they found out that when that began, they had a lot of women that were being diagnosed with breast cancer because of hormone replacement therapy. There are other alternatives to that. There are some women that absolutely have to have it at a lower dose, but my advice would be try some of the other things that grandma used to try way back when, and maybe that would work before you take the medication. And then lack of exercise, like I could point all my fingers at myself because I don't exercise enough, but they have shown they're exercising. And I'm not talking about running a marathon or 5K or any of that, but just 10, 15 minutes of exercise. And I even was told by my endocrinologist that after you eat, if you just walk for 2 minutes, it would help lower your blood sugar. This is all like good stuff. Alcohol, again, in moderation, but there's so many cancers that are attached to that. And I also talk about not having children. So all of these things that I said, they don't even need a prescription. Your doctor does not have to write a prescription. Valerie, exercise. Valerie, eat right. All these things we are in control of. And we're not in control of our race, our sex, or any of that. We don't have control of that. We do have control over exercising and eating fruits and vegetables. What a novel idea, you guys. Eating fruits and vegetables a day. And then the other thing is the stress that we carry. Like, do we not carry stress, women? Do we not carry stress? Like, we take so much responsibility for everything. I heard just this past week on a commercial. If you're on an airplane and they're explaining to you if you need oxygen, to put the oxygen on your face, women first, and then your children and your family. But we won't do that, will we? Not one of us in this room would do that. We put it on our children's faces, our husband, and then maybe if there's some oxygen left, we might put it on ourselves. So that's the way we do when we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. That is not God's plan, the universe plan, the earth's plan for our life. And we have to figure out a way that we can minimize stress, because stress, I really believe in my heart of hearts, plays an important part even in cancer diagnosis. They did a poll and asked women that were diagnosed with breast cancer, did you have a stressful event in your life, like maybe 3 or 6 months prior to the diagnosis? And a lot of those women said yes. And I would have been part of that group. So we can, again, minimize our stress. I want to explain to everybody that we need to know our bodies. Men, when it comes to prostate cancer, I know this is not about that, but I got men in this room, and I got to seize the opportunity. Lock the doors. But we got to take care of ourselves. Men, get your exams. I'm a nurse navigator, and I see all types of cancers. And the men tell me, well, I had no symptoms, and so I don't want anybody to wait until they have symptoms. Women, get your mammograms. The thing that we found out about COVID is that everybody is behind in getting their screenings. From mammograms to colonoscopies, to get your PSA, to get your rectal exams. We are behind. And what is scary is that we may see numbers of cancer and late stage cancers go up because we didn't get our screenings. So I'm sounding the alarm as loud as I can for us to do that. That is just so vitally important. There's a lot of argument right now about women doing self-breast exams because they're afraid that if we find something, we'll call our doctors, and then they'll have to do unnecessary tests, and they say that we get all worried and flustered. I'd like to talk to that person that is saying that. I think that someone that looks at their body will also go get a mammogram and will be diligent and consistent about doing that. We need to know what's going on in our bodies. When my doctor examined me and he saw a dimpling in my breast, just like you have well, when I was in high school, the guys that had the dimples, we just thought they were the cutest thing, but they have no. And he asked me, when did you get this? And I was embarrassed because I'm a nurse and I wasn't even checking my breast. I just thought I was 30, 39. I mean, cancer's not gonna happen to me. And I was diagnosed at the age of 40. And so I probably had that thing in my body at the age of 39. And I was scared after death. In fact, I went for a mammogram on my lunch hour. So I didn't even think, I was like, yeah, I'll be in and out. And I'd go back to work. And they kept doing test after test after test. And I knew something was not right. And then I was the one that had to select the surgeon. So I thank God now for nurse navigators, patient navigators, who can assist patients in getting connected to the right resources. Even as a nurse, I knew nothing about cancer, so I knew nothing about oncology doctors. But I went through the process. I was so scared. And I'm a woman of faith, but I was scared because I thought I was gonna die, because I didn't see African-American women that were survivors. The women that talked to me about their breast cancer journey were white women. No African-American women talked to me. And when they did, finally, they whispered in my ear, I had that. Didn't say the word cancer. And it was difficult, even for my mom, to say breast cancer. And when I started the support group and we would have events, the first event we had, we called it Breast Cancer Awareness. And we probably could count the number of people on both of our hands. People didn't show up. But when we changed the narrative to breast health, more women would come to our events. It's such a stigma in our community. Now, as a believer, and I say that God is a healer, how would anybody know if I never said that I was a breast cancer survivor? How would they know? If we survived domestic violence, how would we know that God is a mind regulator and had beyond told the story? And so we've got to tell the story. And once you continue this journey, you no longer become the victim, but you are the victor. And you learn how to put the can in cancer. You really, really do. And so when I went through all the treatment, I said, this is done, but I know this is not how the story ends. I know that I am supposed to go out and tell the story. And Reverend Milton, you know what we did at Greater St. Paul, how we would go out and tell the story. And it ended up that I started working at Duke. I was even working at Duke when I was diagnosed. And I was blessed to take care of a patient. And this young lady was my patient. Look how God just, yeah. And we talked about things, and I gave her my card, and we would talk, and we would just share. And then when she called me on the phone and asked me, would I come and speak? I mean, that was a no-brainer. I knew. Just look at this connection. Again, for those of us that are believers, we know that when you were in your mama's belly and I was in my mama's belly, God knew our paths were going to cross. And he knew that people were going to be here to hear our story. What I want you to understand that, yeah, there are people that die of the disease, but there are over 3 million women that are living. And not only are they living, they're surviving. So you all know somebody that was either diagnosed with cancer or you yourself diagnosed with cancer. This month is the month that we celebrate breast cancer awareness. And I would love to say on August 31st, October 31st, nobody else will be diagnosed with breast cancer. But that's not the case. Every day, every second, every minute, somebody's impacted. And for many of us that were diagnosed, if you think about Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz, and she was like in Kansas and in a new world, all she wanted to do was get back home. And for many of us that are cancer survivors, all we want to do is get back to the normal. Be back home. Be with Toto. Be with our friends. Be with Andy. And that's all. That's been our journey. But along this journey, we have met the scarecrows and the tin and the lion. But we learned by looking at that glass half full that every single thing and every path that we crossed had meaning. And we learned from those meanings how to grow and be better people. Would I take this cancer diagnosis away? No way. Because I wouldn't have the friendships, the faith. I would have never in a gazillion years stood up in front of two people and had a conversation. Never. But if I could get through cancer, that's been my litmus test, y'all. When other crazy stuff happened to me, I said, look, I made it through cancer. This other thing pales in comparison. Amen. I just want people to be energized and just to know we do have control over our lives and our bodies. Celebrate us as survivors, but celebrate us as thrivers. We want to walk with you hand in hand to make this thing as successful as we can and to continue to fight the good fight. Thank you so much, and God bless you.